Greetings, everyone. I'm laughing at myself. I'm trying to find a comfortable position for this video, and I'm getting tangled up in my own hair. The heat is on, but I'm not complaining. Hope you're blessed as always, and wherever you are, you're counting your blessings. Now we're going to reason. The topic of this one is fake outcry, fake outrage. I'm seeing a lot of that. And I'm going to call out some of those fake outrages that I see. I don't have to tell you that 2020 is the year of fire. I called it very early out in the year. It was very evident. Certain signs and symbols allowed me to see this. And now that we're in July, and more than halfway out of the year now, we're entering into the 7th month. One might get the impression that we're out of the woods or start to get comfortable and let your guard down. And if you thought there was fury in that fire from January to July, you better think again. So one of the things I'm talking about now is one of the fury that we see as a people, as African people, the fury of fake outcry or fake outrage. I see it so much and it's very infuriating. Now, I might not be able to talk about all of it in this video, but I'm going to do or touch on as much as I can. So, in the comment section of the video regarding, the situation with these two strong social media personalities, and I'm not going to say their name now. If you're a regular watcher of my channel, you will know who I'm talking about. When you see that comment section, there are people who are rightfully so outraged because of who they think this man who is accused of such terrible acts in the past. This person has done these things, not allegedly, because the person went to jail for it. And so people are showing different levels of outrage. But I want to talk about those outrages that I'm seeing, because as I have said, I am an advocate for children, and I believe that we're supposed to protect them. But I'm trying to use that example to tie in with what I'm going to say in this message, which is it's time for us to level up, to move from that place where we pretend to be outraged or pretend to be angry about something and actually do something to make those changes. Now, when I think about a place like Jamaica, those of you who are from Jamaica, it might be the same in your country. I can't speak about your country because I don't know what goes on there. But for Jamaica, for example, where we see and hear such wretched stories of abuse, of hurt, of suffering, of angst, we as Jamaicans, we see it, we know it, we understand it. I've shared stories here about times when I felt threatened by my fellow Jamaican citizens as a female, not just violated with words that are said to me even as I'm walking on the street. When you're a female in Jamaica, when you're walking on the street, sometimes that feels like violence because of things that men say to you. So for example, when I was about 19 years old, I was working at this place and I wasn't feeling well, and I asked my boss if I could go home, and he told me to go home. And when I was leaving, one of the guys that worked at the same place, stood on top of the building and was telling me that I had to go home because my oil was riding. Now, I didn't know what the hell he was talking about, and when I got home and talked to my brothers about it, they told me what it was. So, I was uncomfortable because he was laughing and all the other men were laughing, And they were saying that the reason why I was having a headache was because I was not letting them do whatever to me. So, I might not know all that they were saying or the expressions they were using, but I know it was very offensive. And so, as a mother now, I go back to Jamaica with my girls, and, the things that I saw, and I witnessed old men, like really raggedy old men, approach my little 11-year-old daughter. And when I ask, what are you doing? I'm told, I give her to me. I'll take care of her. I'll make sure she goes to the church. 11 years old. This man who could be my grandfather. And so I know what it's like, that little girls are not safe in Jamaica, and boys are not safe either. Let's keep it real. So when we're talking about protecting these children, and when we're talking about giving these young people or these innocent kids a listening ear, and to at least advocate for them, I'm very serious about that. But in this video, I'm going back on that to say that a culture or a country like Jamaica, where the average citizen, if they have not experienced rape physically, they would have at least experienced it spiritually, or psychologically. There's no female in Jamaica who can ever say that I was never violated sexually. Someone doesn't have to touch you, or someone doesn't have to forcibly put themselves upon you for you to consider yourself raped. I was, on many occasions. Every Jamaican woman at some point would have experienced this kind of violation. So based on that culture and that response to femininity, or that response to masculinity, whichever lens you're looking at, you would say then, when you hear these folks under the comment section of my video or other folks' video, or the outcry to have this person who was accused of this terrible thing to die, I have to say to myself, where is that coming from? Because if Jamaica was that type of society where folks are so adamant that individuals who commit certain types of acts, whether it be upon children or women, that they should be annihilated, then you have to say to yourself, it's not reflected in the actual country or culture where I come from. Because I can tell you stories after stories of witnessing with my own eyes young girls being violated. Again, at 17 years old, I go to this place in Spanish Town to live. I was walking with someone at the time who was probably about 27, 28 years old. And when we were walking, it was nighttime. The road was not well lit. The community where we were at didn't have a lot of street lights. And so I saw these two girls. One was being dragged on the ground in those marble, not marble, when they throw that gravel on the ground, but it's not pressed. So the road is rough. And she's been pulled by her leg by a guy who happens to be a neighbor of ours. And the other girl, and these two girls were at least 13, 14 years old. One girl was pleading with the guy to say, please don't do this. We're your friend. Why are you doing this? He was dragging the girl by her feet, bringing her off into the bush to go and, do what to this young girl. And as her friend pleaded with him, please don't do this. And the female I was walking with said to him, leave the girl alone. And then she turned to the girls and she said, serve your right, because you're gone to church. Why are you going out to go talk to man? Now, that 28-year-old person had the opportunity to, make an alarm, to see to it that that young girl was freed. But she just barely said anything to the guy. And me living in this place that they call a ghetto, you're told to mind your own business, and I'm seeing the adult handle the situation that way. I'm like, aren't you going to stop him? And she says, I'm not going to stop him because these girls are at church and they go on with man. And he was dragging the child. She was crying and her friend was pleading with him. And of course, he went and carried out his act upon this young girl. I don't know who they were. I didn't live there at the time. I just went there to visit. And I would have eventually lived there for 5 years before I left. And then that same guy, they say lay waited a young girl. At the time she was about 14, and violated her on her way from church that night. Now, this is one person who I witnessed doing these two things to. And someone would say, well, why didn't you stop him? I was a teenager myself. And the woman that I was with said, just leave them alone, mind your own business, serve them right. Years later, I go back and I hear a story of a young girl who agreed to sleep with somebody. And on the night when she promised to do that, he brought all his friends with her, with him, and violated this girl. Another female that I know, maybe when she was 19 years old, she was dating somebody who happened to be the son of a very wealthy man. He invited her to the Caymanas Park, or that place where they have the horse race. And when she went, agreeing to be intimate with him, after he was done, boy after boy after boy came in. They were all wealthy children of wealthy people. They violated her. She was traumatized by that incident. She kept it a secret. Again, why are people keeping secrets from people who violate them? So when I see individuals come out against this gentleman that went to prison for committing this crime, and I've already asked all my questions, trying to figure out what was the circumstance around it, because people, I'm not going to get emotional about strangers, and I'm not going to be 100% firm that something happened in someone's life and I am not there. I don't know these individuals. I have to ask questions, and based on evidence that I see, I could say, well, this is, it's unfortunate for you that you're accused of this thing, because here it went through the court and now you're convicted. But I still can't put my foot down and say, yes, you did that. There's something wrong with that, because I would then put myself in a position that when I get accused of something for which I am innocent, who's there to come and defend me? So I don't want to defend someone who is obviously in the wrong. But I'm saying here, these cries that you see on social media within our community, they're convenient, they're selective outrage. Because if people are really angry about this kind of thing that is so common, is ever present in Jamaica, as I said, there is not one female who will not have a story of being violated. And it's not just happening from random strangers, it's happening in the family. Here's another story. Someone told me that she went to Jamaica because some loved one of theirs passed away, and as a family flew in from all around the world to come to this funeral, one night she was in the room with her brother, and he started holding her down and wanting to do you know what. And she made noise and she screamed and she fought him off and she escaped, and she went to tell her mother. Her mom took her in the room, told her to be quiet, shh, don't disgrace the family. And she said to her own daughter, what's the big deal? It's just a little sex. So the mom would have been okay with her older son violating our younger daughter just to save face. So it's our culture. It's a part of our culture. Where it comes from, what started it, that is irrelevant to me right now. So if we actually felt this kind of rage about this, why do you have someone like Tanya Stevens, who obviously is very bitter and deeply wounded because of things that happened to her? People are saying she's insane, but why is she so angry? She's obviously not a dunce. She's not illiterate. She has the ability to reason. And she is a talented artist. And yet what we see of her is when she wishes to express herself, she's not able to do it in a way that everyone can receive it. Because sometimes I wish when she's making her point, she would come out and be more calm and not give into some of the things that she's saying. I can't tell her how to be. I'm just saying that where does that rage come from? And I can bet you any money that a lot of that rage and that resentment and anger that she feels inside is because of the unhealed parts of herself, where someone violated her and somehow she's afraid to say the person's name. So now if she hears of someone doing that to another child, she might come out and have so much venom and be so angry because she displaced that anger and that rage. It's her own wounds. It's her own pain that she's feeling, and she's deflecting that. So what I'm saying in this video is it's time for us to stop having these fake outrages and to deal with the things that is really bothering us, things that are trapped inside that we're not dealing, we're not processing. We're angry about the melon, but it's really the banana that's really the true reason why we are angry. Why are people so angry in Jamaica? Why are women so angry? Why are the men so angry? Why are they so bitter against each other? Now we see with the Black Lives Matter, and you hear these individuals, power, and putting things on social media and having blackout days and all that stuff. That all's good and dandy, but guess what? Nothing will change because it is not coming from that place that is agitating for change. It's coming from that place where people are angry and hurt because of personal and private pains that they suffer. So it doesn't translate or transfer to true or real change in the world, because the outrage is fake. They're not truly angry about this thing and want to agitate for change. They're just angry because they have pain and hurt inside that they have not dealt with. Again, there will always be someone who act dunce and will just try to take my words and make it into what they want it to be. A culture or society like Jamaica, where the female is not safe in the household or anywhere else. Women are not safe in Jamaica, and they're not just unsafe. They're not just subject to being violated by men. It's the same with women. They're not just violated by strangers, but family, by your own mother that gives birth to you, by your own father. There are many men, and I'm not saying all Jamaican men, there are many men, however, in Jamaica who have violated their own daughters. You see social media with all these different ones. Sometimes I get frustrated when I hear these girls or these women who have a platform come out to talk about them being violated, but what, instead of chanting their own revolution and going to confront these ones who violated them, they know where to find them. They don't know the story of what happened to this poor child that we hear was abused by this man. They don't know that family. They don't know that kid. And you don't have to know someone to empathize. But what I'm saying, that level of rage and anger that you see is indicative of the fact that these individuals themselves are wounded, and instead of going to the ones who cause them hurt, they're lashing out on folks who don't know them. You understand? And so nothing will change. You will just always have these different stories that come up, and people show the same kind of fake outrage and not really addressing the problem, not doing anything to change it. First thing you got to do is fix you. You have to heal yourself, regardless of what anyone does to you. So if you're a victim of violence, until you address that within yourself, you cannot help that other person who will be later victimized or already victimized. You can't help anybody if you're in a place where you can't be rational, where you can think things through, where you can't allow the person who is violated to tell their story without you getting so angry. You have to be in a place where your mind is clear, where you are at a peaceful place. Otherwise, what you're going to do is contaminate that person who was victimized, because you have so much rage in you that you won't even be allowed. You won't allow the other person to tell their story, because it will become about you. All of a sudden, it's your story. And so when you should be listening to this child or this woman tell her story in the way she chooses to tell her story, you're busy trying to tell her about the outcome. And sometimes that person who is victimized is not even thinking about the outcome yet. They're just thinking about what they have experienced and want someone to be able to listen to them and help them. Because the best way to help somebody is to show them how to help themselves. So even if you've been a victim yourself of whatever, you know, you can't walk the person. You can't say, come to me and let me, be the one to put your story out there and tell your story for yourself. Let people tell their own stories. It's part of the healing. Give them a platform if you have the opportunity to do so, to tell their own stories. And while they're telling it, not to become emotional. Now, I know sometimes it's difficult depending on the details and, the child's age and the story. We're all emotional beings, so we get caught up in it. But for true changes to occur, we must first allow folks to confront the things inside that, is causing them pain, and helping them to release that by removing yourself. These comment sections, sometimes when I read them, I'm thinking to myself, are you talking about the person who was victimized? Are you talking about yourself? Why are you so emotional? And many of these victims of violence know where the victimizer is. They know where the person who did this thing is to them, and they would protect them. They won't say who these persons are. They won't go out there and confront these individuals, but you'll hear them quickly say, kill somebody. You have a little part of the information, you don't know the whole story, and you're asking that that person die. That can't be a real response to someone else's suffering. That is a response to your own suffering. Let's tie this in with the Black Lives Matter situation. Now, I'm going to say here that when you really think about it, and many of us are religious people, when you think about religion and what it's done, how it's bind the minds of people, how it prevents us from really experiencing the true person or true strength, the true power that we carry within us, by limiting our minds with stories that are often not true. The same thing is true when you look at certain parts in the Bible where it says, thou shalt not this, thou shalt not that. The very ones who are telling you, thou shalt not, don't live by those principles. And so some of the things that they have in the scripture that tell you, it's wrong, these ones actually were setting you up by saying that these things are wrong. And when you start to say, yes, it's wrong, when you have that with you for 50 years, hearing that this particular thing is a sin, and then all of a sudden, if you mention anything negative about someone who's committing that so-called sin, you're then turned around and be brandished or be labeled as a this or a that. All these different fancy words that come up to label people after you spend hundreds of years indoctrinating them, hundreds of years allowing them to be a particular way, teaching them these things. Some of the folks who are called racist grew up in societies that are racist. They have seen, from the foundation up, all kinds of discrimination, all kinds of unfair treatment towards other people. And it became like common nature, commonplace to these ones. And then all of a sudden, someone tells them, oh, this is wrong. But they never got a chance to start processing the fact that this was wrong. And so people are accused and are expected to change overnight. And they cannot change overnight something that they never even acknowledged to be wrong to begin with. And so what we're getting people to do now is to go underground with their hate, because they can't possibly change overnight. They can't possibly change because someone decide to come out and pretend that they're not a part of that, because they have the language and they have the sort of what do you call it, mirror to project this image of them being nice and clean and safe. There are many people that we think are safe and they're not safe. But their image is squeaky clean. And we don't know what they're doing behind closed doors. And so we gladly accept them as clean and pure when they're individuals who have done some horrible things. They still maintain respect because you didn't find out what they did. And so the fake outrage, that I see in our community towards each other is what I'm addressing in this video. As long as the person has a black skin like you, all of a sudden you're unforgiving, but you're very eager and willing to forgive folks who over hundreds and hundreds of years have demonstrated nothing but hate towards you and are clearly involved in these horrible acts against African people. So you say, here's a pass because you don't look like me. And I'm going to end with this. When you look and see the sort of presence on social media of Jamaicans and how difficult it is for them to get along and how they have different platforms and have different opportunity to reach out to different people and have the ability to teach, and to share knowledge back and forth and to grow strong community even within this virtual space. And it's a disgrace to see how easily they turn on each other. And yet in a whim, if someone takes a video and shows some other face, disrespecting or violating a black person, all of a sudden, we are chanting, our lives matter. But we don't care about the child next door that's hungry. We don't care about the child who obviously is being abused. We don't care about the woman because she's poor. We don't care about, someone because they're not beautiful in our midst. We're not fixing our own problems within our circle, within our community, within our country. We're trying to fix other persons based on these fake outcries or outrages. So until we can fix the other person, we first have to fix ourselves. Until we can get to the point where we ask for respect, we have to show respect to self and the other within our community. And the only time there can be real change within and without is if we understand the path we play and fix these emotional, these psychological problems that we have. I'm not going to talk about who taught us how to hate ourselves. It's nonsense, because even if this was true, if you live in a ghetto and you see that you are treated terribly, all of you that live in this ghetto see that you're always holding the blade as somebody else holds the handle. You realize that these guys, these politicians don't care anything about you. Why would you allow them to give you a gun in your hand to go and destroy someone who's suffering like you, knowing full well that after you've done the dirty work, they're going to come back for you, send someone else to destroy you? So yes, there are others who have their hand in pitting you against each other, but where's your common sense? Where's your common sense to know that if I'm going out here and destroying someone who lives in the same community as myself, or is in the same social strata as myself, who's the idiot? You are the ones who sent you. You are the fool. And you are a fool if you're out here, getting your blood pressure so high and warring with strangers you'll never see or strangers you don't know over something that happened to a person that may or may not have happened. You're so angry. Your outrage is so out there. And yet, you're not dealing with the one who you see with your own eyes doing the thing. You're not addressing your son, who you see bringing home a child who is only 14 or 13 years old. You're 19, 20, 21 year old. What you call him, a gallus. And he comes to your home with teenage girls. Your brother, your husband, your friends, your family members. You conveniently turn your eyes north, But as soon as you see the same thing that you should be angry about happening in your household, as soon as it's happening on social media with people that don't know you and you don't know them, you're ready to demand that they die. And you're not hunting the person who destroyed you, who left you in this monster that you are. You're not going after the person who violated you, but you're trying to go after complete strangers based on some story that you hear, whether it's true or not true. That's not to say that we shouldn't advocate for and agitate for other persons or other people's situations. But until you deal with your own and fix it in your own backyard, in your own country, stop with these outrages, because it's ridiculous. And there's no change on the outside unless you have change within. Stay blessed, everybody.